In this part of the ISO 27001 series, we focus on preparing for the certification audit. By this stage, the organization has already established and implemented its information security management system. The certification audit is the point where an independent auditor evaluates whether the ISMS is operating effectively and meets the requirements of the ISO 27001 standard. In this session, we will look at how certification audits work, what auditors expect to see, and how organizations can prepare to demonstrate that their information security framework is implemented, monitored, and continually improving. ISO follows the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, which provides the structure for establishing, implementing, monitoring, and continually improving the information security management system. In the planning phase, the organization defines the context, leadership commitment, and risk management approach under clauses 4 to 6. The Do phase focuses on implementing the necessary controls and processes, covered in clauses 7 and 8. The Check phase in clause 9 evaluates how well the ISMS is performing through monitoring, internal audits, and management review. Finally, clause 10 focuses on improvement, where nonconformities are addressed and corrective actions are implemented. Once these improvement activities have been completed and the ISMS is operating effectively, the organization should be ready to proceed with the external certification audit. The ISMS implementation journey typically follows a structured sequence aligned with the clauses of the standard. It begins with understanding the organization's context, including internal and external issues and stakeholder requirements. Leadership then establishes commitment, policies, and roles to support the ISMS. During the planning phase, the organization identifies information security risks and determines how those risks will be treated. Support processes ensure that the necessary resources, competence, and awareness are in place. The operation phase focuses on implementing and managing the selected controls. Performance evaluation then measures how effectively the ISMS is operating through monitoring, internal audits, and management reviews. Based on these results, improvement activities are carried out to address nonconformities and strengthen the system. Once the ISMS is operating effectively and improvements have been implemented, the organization can proceed to the external audit and certification stage. The certification audit provides independent confirmation that an organization's information security management system is properly established and operating effectively. During the audit, the certification body evaluates whether the organization has implemented an ISMS aligned with ISO 27001, whether information security risks are being identified and managed, and whether the selected controls are operating as intended. The auditors also review how the organization monitors the performance of its security processes and how it continually improves the ISMS. The goal of the certification audit is not only to verify compliance with the standard, but also to confirm that the organization has a structured and sustainable approach to managing information security. Before an organization proceeds to the certification audit, it should ensure that the key elements of the information security management system are in place and operating effectively. This readiness checklist highlights the main areas auditors will expect to see during the audit. From a governance perspective, the ISMS scope, policy, and security objectives should be defined and approved by leadership. The organization should also have completed its risk assessment, implemented a risk treatment plan, and documented the selected controls in the statement of applicability. Controls should be implemented and supported by evidence showing they are functioning in practice. In addition, monitoring activities, internal audits, and management reviews should already be taking place to evaluate the performance of the ISMS. Any nonconformities identified should be addressed through corrective actions. Finally, employees should understand their security responsibilities and know how to report incidents. When these elements are in place, the organization is typically ready to proceed to the certification audit. Selecting the certification body typically takes place once the organization has established and implemented its information security management system and has begun evaluating and improving it. As shown in this table, the ISMS is first established through the activities covered in clauses 4 to 6, where the organization defines its context, leadership commitment, and risk management approach. Controls are then implemented during the operational phase in clauses 7 and 8. Clause 9 focuses on evaluating the ISMS through monitoring, internal audits, and management reviews, while Clause 10 addresses improvement through corrective actions. Once these steps are in place and the organization has confidence that the ISMS is operating effectively, it can proceed with selecting a certification body. This usually occurs a few months before the Stage 1 audit, allowing time to agree on the audit scope, schedule the audit, and prepare for the certification process. Selecting the right certification body is an important step in the certification process. Organizations should consider several key criteria when making this decision. First, the certification body should be accredited by a recognized accreditation authority, which ensures that the organization operates according to internationally recognized auditing and certification standards. It is also important that the certification body has strong expertise in ISO 27001 and that the audit team assigned to the audit has the appropriate qualifications and experience. Industry experience can also be valuable, as auditors who understand the organization's sector are better able to assess relevant risks and controls. In addition, organizations should consider the certification body's audit methodology, reputation, and global recognition, as these factors influence the credibility and value of the certification. Finally, clear communication and a well-managed audit process help ensure that the certification audit runs smoothly and provides meaningful outcomes. In addition to selecting the certification body, organizations should also consider the competence and suitability of the auditor or audit team assigned to the certification audit. An effective auditor should have strong expertise in information security and a solid understanding of ISO 27001 requirements, risk management, and governance principles. Professional certifications such as ISO 27001 lead auditor qualifications demonstrate formal training and recognized competence in auditing the standard. It is also important that auditors maintain objectivity and impartiality, particularly if they have had prior involvement in the implementation of the ISMS. Experience conducting management system audits helps auditors identify nonconformities and improvement opportunities more effectively. In addition, auditors should understand risk-based auditing, communicate clearly with personnel during interviews, and apply a balanced, evidence-based audit approach. Familiarity with the organization's industry and technology environment can also help auditors evaluate risks and controls in the correct business context. Before pricing or scheduling a certification audit, certification bodies typically ask a series of questions to understand the organization and determine how the audit should be planned. These questions help them establish the organization's legal identity, locations, and number of employees, which are used to determine the audit scope and duration. They will also review the defined ISMS scope to confirm which services, products, or organizational units are included in the certification. Questions about systems and infrastructure help auditors understand the technology environment, including the use of cloud services, outsourced providers, or international data processing. Finally, certification bodies will ask about the organization's certification history, including whether this is an initial certification or a transfer from another body, and whether there have been previous audit findings. This information helps the certification body plan the audit approach, identify potential risk areas, and ensure the audit is appropriately structured. During a certification audit, several roles from both the certification body and the organization are involved in the audit process. The lead auditor is responsible for managing the audit, coordinating the audit team, and presenting the audit findings. Audit team members support the process by conducting interviews, reviewing evidence, and assessing conformity with ISO 27001 requirements. In some cases, a technical expert may join the audit team to provide specialized knowledge where complex systems or technologies are involved. Within the organization, the ISMS manager or audit coordinator usually acts as the primary contact, coordinating the audit schedule and ensuring that the necessary documentation and personnel are available. An audit guide may accompany the auditors to help them navigate the organization and reach the appropriate departments. Process owners explain how security controls are implemented within their areas, while IT and security representatives demonstrate technical controls and operational security practices. Internal audit representatives may present evidence of the internal audit program and results, and HR or training representatives demonstrate competence and awareness activities. Finally, top management plays an important role by demonstrating leadership commitment and participating in the opening and closing meetings. An important part of preparing for a certification audit is ensuring that staff understand their role during the audit process. Employees should know that the purpose of the audit is to verify that the ISMS is implemented and operating effectively, and that it is not a personal evaluation of their performance. During the audit, staff may be asked questions about their responsibilities, the policies and procedures relevant to their work, and how they help protect information within the organization. Auditors often check awareness of key practices such as incident reporting, information classification and handling, and how access to systems is requested or approved. Employees may also be asked to provide records or demonstrate how processes are performed in practice. It is important to encourage honest communication during the audit. If someone is unsure of an answer, it is acceptable to say so and explain how the process normally works. Ultimately, auditors are looking to see that security practices are understood, applied in daily operations, and continually improving over time. The certification audit process follows a structured sequence. Before the audit begins, the organization completes its ISMS implementation, conducts internal audits and management reviews, and selects a certification body. The first formal step is the Stage 1 audit, often referred to as the readiness review, where the auditor evaluates key documentation, the ISMS scope, and the organization's overall preparedness for certification. If any issues are identified, the organization addresses these before proceeding to the Stage 2 audit. Stage 2 is the full certification audit, where auditors conduct interviews, review records, and verify that controls are implemented and operating effectively. If non-conformities are identified, the organization must implement corrective actions, typically within a defined timeframe. Once the certification body reviews the audit results and confirms that requirements have been met, the ISO 27001 certification is issued and is typically valid for 3 years. During this period, surveillance audits are conducted annually to ensure the ISMS continues to operate effectively, and before the end of the cycle, a recertification audit is performed to renew the certification. Auditors gather objective evidence using several established audit techniques. One of the primary methods is document review, where auditors examine policies, procedures, and other documented information to confirm that the ISMS framework is defined and aligned with ISO 27001 requirements. They also perform record sampling, reviewing operational records and evidence to verify that processes and controls are functioning as intended. Interviews are conducted with staff and management to confirm that individuals understand their roles and responsibilities within the ISMS. Auditors may also use observation to verify that processes, systems, or security practices are actually being implemented in daily operations. Finally, auditors use traceability to follow the relationship between identified risks, the controls selected to address those risks, and the evidence demonstrating that those controls are operating effectively. Together, these techniques help auditors form a reliable conclusion about the effectiveness of the organization's ISMS. The Stage 1 audit is often referred to as the readiness review. The purpose of this audit is to confirm that the organization has established the core elements of its information security management system and is ready to proceed to the full certification audit. During this stage, the auditor reviews key ISMS documentation, including policies, procedures, the risk management approach, and other supporting information. The auditor will also validate the defined ISMS scope to ensure that the boundaries of the certification are clearly understood. In addition, the auditor reviews the organization's risk management processes to confirm that risks have been identified and that appropriate treatment measures have been planned. The outcome of the Stage 1 audit is a determination of whether the organization is sufficiently prepared to move forward to the Stage 2 certification audit. A Stage 1 audit is typically conducted over 1 or 2 days and focuses on reviewing the organization's ISMS documentation and overall readiness for certification. The audit normally begins with an opening meeting where the auditor confirms the audit objectives, scope, and agenda with management and the ISMS team. During the first day, the auditor reviews the organization's context, interested parties, and defined ISMS scope, followed by leadership commitment, policies, roles, and responsibilities. The auditor will also review the risk assessment methodology, the risk treatment approach, and the statement of applicability to confirm how risks are being addressed. On the second day, the focus typically shifts to support and operational aspects of the ISMS, including resources, competence, awareness, communication, and document management. The auditor may also review how controls are implemented, how security performance is monitored, and whether internal audits and management reviews have been conducted. The audit concludes with a closing meeting where the auditor summarizes the findings and confirms whether the organization appears ready to proceed to the Stage 2 certification audit. During a Stage 1 ISO 27001 audit, the auditor focuses primarily on reviewing the organization's documented information security management system to determine whether it has been properly established and is ready for the certification audit. For example, under Clause 4.3 ISMS Scope, the auditor will review whether the scope of the ISMS is clearly defined and documented. The organization should be able to present a scope statement describing the boundaries of the ISMS, including the services, locations, and systems that are included. Under Clause 5.2 Information Security Policy, the auditor checks whether top management has formally established and approved the organization's information security policy. Evidence typically includes an approved policy document signed or endorsed by leadership. For Clause 6.1 Risk Assessment and Treatment, the auditor will review whether a defined risk assessment process exists and whether it has been applied. Organizations normally demonstrate this through their risk assessment methodology, risk register, and risk treatment plan. The auditor will also review the statement of applicability, which documents the security controls selected to address identified risks and explains why certain controls are included or excluded. Under Clause 7 Support, auditors verify that the organization has the necessary resources, competence, and awareness programs in place. Evidence may include training records and security awareness documentation. For Clause 9 Performance Evaluation, the auditor will look for evidence that the organization has established monitoring processes, conducted internal audits, and performed management reviews. Finally, under Clause 10 Improvement, the auditor confirms that the organization has processes to manage nonconformities and corrective actions, typically supported by corrective action procedures and improvement records. Together, this documentation helps the auditor determine whether the organization is ready to proceed to the Stage 2 certification audit. During a certification audit, auditors focus on several key elements that demonstrate whether the information security management system is properly implemented and operating effectively. One of the first things they look for is a clearly defined ISMS scope, which establishes the boundaries of the system. They then review the organization's information security policy to confirm leadership commitment and governance. A critical area of focus is the organization's risk assessment process and the corresponding risk treatment plan, which show how information security risks are identified and managed. The statement of applicability is also examined to confirm which controls have been selected and why. Auditors then review evidence that these controls are implemented and operating in practice. They also evaluate internal audits and management reviews to ensure the ISMS is being monitored and evaluated regularly. Security awareness across the organization is another important indicator that security practices are embedded in daily operations. Finally, auditors review corrective actions to confirm that issues are addressed and that the ISMS is continually improving. The Stage 2 audit is the full certification audit where the auditor evaluates how effectively the ISMS has been implemented and is operating in practice. During this stage, the audit team examines whether the organization's security processes and controls are functioning as intended. Auditors verify that the controls identified in the statement of applicability have been implemented and are operating effectively. They review records and other evidence to confirm that procedures are being followed and that security activities are taking place as defined. Interviews are also conducted with staff and management to confirm that roles, responsibilities, and security practices are understood across the organization. The objective of the Stage 2 audit is to determine whether the ISMS is effectively managing information security risks and meets the requirements of ISO 27001. This is an example of how a Stage 2 ISO 27001 certification audit may be structured across several days. On day 1, the audit typically begins with the opening meeting, where the lead auditor confirms the audit scope, objectives, agenda, and communication arrangements with management and the ISMS team. The auditor then performs a high-level review of the ISMS management system, covering clauses 4 through 10 of the standard. This includes verifying the organization's context, leadership commitment, risk management process, security objectives, support processes, monitoring activities, and improvement mechanisms. On day 2, the focus usually shifts to organizational and people-related security controls, which are part of Annex A organizational and people controls. Auditors review governance structures, policies, supplier security, asset ownership, HR security practices, and staff awareness programs. These discussions often involve representatives from HR, procurement, and security teams. Day 3 typically examines physical and technological controls. This includes reviewing areas such as access control, identity management, network security, cryptography, malware protection, and physical security arrangements. IT and security operations teams are usually involved during this part of the audit. On day 4, the auditor focuses on operational security and monitoring controls. This includes reviewing incident management processes, logging and monitoring practices, vulnerability management, backup processes, resilience measures, and other operational security activities. The auditor will also conduct evidence sampling and traceability checks, tracing how identified risks are linked to selected controls, how those controls are implemented, and what evidence demonstrates they are operating effectively. Finally, on day 5, the audit concludes with the closing meeting, where the auditor presents the audit findings and provides a recommendation regarding certification. It is important to remember that the auditor only makes a recommendation. The final certification decision is made by the certification body after reviewing the audit report and any corrective actions. This example shows how organizations typically demonstrate evidence for a specific ISO 27001 clause during an audit. In this case, the focus is on Clause 6.1, which relates to actions taken to address information security risks and opportunities. For Clause 6.1.1, the organization must demonstrate that risks are identified based on internal and external issues and the needs of interested parties. This is often shown through a risk register linked to the organization's context analysis and an interested party register mapped to the risk assessment. For Clause 6.1.2, the auditor will look for evidence that a defined and repeatable risk assessment methodology exists and that risks are analyzed and evaluated using consistent criteria. This is typically supported by a risk assessment methodology document and a risk register showing likelihood, impact, and risk ratings. Finally, Clause 6.1.3 focuses on risk treatment. The organization must show that risk owners are assigned, appropriate controls are selected, and those controls are documented and implemented. Evidence may include a risk treatment plan, the statement of applicability, and records showing how selected controls are implemented and tracked. Together, these elements demonstrate that the organization is systematically identifying, assessing, and managing its information security risks. Illustrates how auditors verify the implementation of a specific control listed in the statement of applicability. In this case, the control is Annex A Control A.5.15, which relates to access control. The auditor first confirms that the control has been selected in the statement of applicability to address an identified risk. They then review whether the organization has defined policies or procedures that describe how access to information and systems is managed. The auditor will also check that access is granted through an authorized approval process and that access rights are reviewed periodically. Another important aspect is ensuring that access is removed when employees leave the organization or change roles. Finally, the auditor may review logs or monitoring records to confirm that access activities are being tracked. Together, these pieces of evidence demonstrate that the control is not only documented, but also implemented and operating effectively in practice. During the audit, auditors are not simply checking whether documents exist. What they are really evaluating is whether the information security management system is functioning effectively in practice. First, they assess whether the ISMS has actually been implemented across the organization, rather than existing only as documented policies. They then verify that the controls identified in the statement of applicability are operating as intended. A key focus is also how the organization manages information security risks, ensuring that risks are identified, evaluated, and treated appropriately. Auditors also examine how the organization monitors the performance of its security processes through activities such as monitoring, internal audits, and management reviews. Finally, they look for evidence that the ISMS is continually improving over time through corrective actions and ongoing enhancements. In essence, auditors are evaluating whether the organization has a structured and effective system for managing information security. There are several warning signs that auditors look for which may indicate weaknesses in the ISMS. One common issue is when policies exist but staff are not aware of them or do not understand how they apply to their daily work. Another concern is when risk assessments appear to have been created only for the purpose of the audit rather than being part of an ongoing risk management process. Auditors also look carefully at whether controls that are documented in policies and procedures are actually implemented and operating in practice. Skipping or delaying internal audits is another issue, as internal audits are a key mechanism for monitoring the effectiveness of the ISMS. Finally, auditors expect organizations to track and resolve corrective actions properly. When corrective actions are not documented or followed up, it raises concerns about the organization's ability to manage improvement and maintain the effectiveness of the ISMS. If an auditor picks up these concerns, they are red flags to an auditor. One of the most common is when the ISMS scope is not clearly defined. If the organization cannot clearly explain what systems, services, locations, or processes are included in the ISMS, it becomes difficult to evaluate whether the security framework is properly applied. Another concern is incomplete risk assessments. The ISMS is built around risk management, so if risks are not properly identified, analyzed, and evaluated, it suggests the security program may not be risk-driven. Auditors also look closely at the statement of applicability. If the statement of applicability is poorly aligned with the organization's risks or controls, it may indicate that controls were selected without proper justification. Missing internal audits or management reviews are also major red flags. These processes demonstrate that the organization is monitoring the ISMS and that leadership is actively involved in overseeing information security. Another common issue is when controls exist only on paper. Policies and procedures may be documented, but if there is no operational evidence that they are implemented, auditors will question their effectiveness. Finally, staff awareness is critical. If employees cannot explain basic security policies, responsibilities, or processes, it indicates that the ISMS may not be embedded into everyday operations. Certain findings appear repeatedly across many organizations. One common issue is incomplete or poorly maintained risk assessments. If risks are not clearly identified, evaluated, and linked to treatment actions, it becomes difficult to demonstrate that information security risks are being properly managed. Another frequent finding is missing evidence that controls are actually operating. Policies and procedures may exist, but auditors expect to see records, logs, approvals, or reports that demonstrate the controls are functioning in practice. Internal audits are also a key area. When organizations fail to conduct internal audits or when audits are superficial, it raises concerns about whether the ISMS is being effectively monitored. Similarly, management reviews must be performed regularly. These reviews demonstrate that leadership is actively overseeing the ISMS and making informed decisions about risk, performance, and improvement. Finally, corrective actions must be properly implemented and tracked. If nonconformities are identified but not resolved, it indicates weaknesses in the organization's improvement process and may result in audit findings. The auditor may identify different types of findings. Understanding these categories helps organizations know how to respond and what impact they may have on certification. The first outcome is conformity. This means the requirement has been fully implemented and is operating effectively. The auditor has seen sufficient evidence that the organization is meeting the requirement. In this case, no corrective action is required, and the organization should simply continue maintaining and improving the process as part of the ISMS. A minor nonconformity occurs when a requirement has not been fully met, but the issue is limited in scope and does not represent a systemic failure of the ISMS. Organizations are typically given around 30 days to submit a corrective action plan explaining the root cause and how the issue will be addressed. Certification can usually still proceed while the corrective action is being implemented. A major nonconformity is more serious and indicates a significant failure or breakdown in the ISMS, such as a missing process, ineffective control implementation, or a systemic issue affecting compliance with the standard. In this case, the organization must correct the issue, perform root cause analysis, and implement corrective actions. Evidence must then be provided to the auditors, typically within 30 to 90 days. Certification cannot be recommended until the major nonconformity has been resolved and accepted by the certification body. Finally, auditors may raise an opportunity for improvement, often called an OFI. This is not a nonconformity but rather a suggestion from the auditor highlighting an area where the organization could strengthen or mature its ISMS. There is no formal deadline and it does not affect certification, but organizations often address these as part of their continual improvement activities. When a nonconformity is identified during an ISO 27001 audit, the organization is expected to provide a structured response explaining how the issue will be addressed. The first step is root cause analysis. The organization must explain why the nonconformity occurred in the first place. This goes beyond simply fixing the immediate issue and focuses on identifying the underlying cause so that the problem does not continue to happen. Next, the organization must develop a corrective action plan. This plan defines the specific actions that will be taken to address the issue and bring the organization back into compliance with the requirement. The organization must then provide evidence of implementation. This means demonstrating that the corrective actions have actually been completed. Evidence may include updated procedures, system changes, training records, or other documentation showing that the issue has been resolved. Finally, organizations should describe prevention measures. These are steps taken to ensure that the same issue does not occur again in the future. This demonstrates that the organization is applying continual improvement principles within the ISMS. One important principle to understand in the certification process is that the auditor does not grant certification. The auditor's role is to conduct the audit, review evidence, interview staff, and evaluate whether the organization's ISMS meets the requirements of ISO 27001. Based on this evaluation, the auditor prepares an audit report and makes a recommendation regarding the certification outcome. The certification body then reviews the audit report and any corrective actions submitted by the organization. This review ensures that the audit process was conducted properly and that the evidence supports the findings. Finally, the certification decision function, which is independent from the audit team, makes the final certification decision. This separation ensures objectivity, impartiality, and integrity in the certification process. In simple terms, the auditor recommends the outcome, but the certification body makes the final decision. Achieving ISO 27001 certification demonstrates more than just compliance with a standard. It shows that the organization has established a structured approach to protecting information. It confirms that information security risks are identified and managed through a risk-based approach, ensuring that controls are aligned with the organization's real threats and business priorities. It demonstrates that security controls are implemented and operating in practice, protecting systems, information, and services. It also shows that leadership is actively involved, providing oversight, direction, and accountability for the effectiveness of the information security management system. Finally, ISO 27001 certification reflects a commitment to continual improvement, ensuring that the organization regularly monitors, reviews, and strengthens its security posture as risks and technologies evolve. In essence, ISO 27001 certification provides confidence to customers, partners, and stakeholders that information security is managed in a systematic, reliable, and internationally recognized way.